Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. And I know we have folks from 4 different countries, so thank you very much for joining us. Today, we're going a new format. So what we're doing is we're introducing our subject matter experts for the week, and then we're asking them questions. So for today and this week, our focus is meditation. So I wanted to welcome Molly Knight Forde to speak with us. Hi, Molly.
Hi, thank you.
Thanks for being with us. If you want to tell us a little bit about your background and how did you get into meditation?
Sure. I have always been a seeker. I've kind of had that sense that there's something more,
Hmm.
and I pretty much sought it out through music. Actually, I'm a
Oh,
classical pianist by trade. Um, did a lot of high-level competition and studying at Paris Conservatory and whatnot, and it really started to wear down on me in a stress
okay.
factor. And I knew that there were ways to deal with nerves on stage and whatnot, but I went right naturally to doing some kind of meditation on my own. I had no
Hmm.
teaching at that point, but I found that if I just sat every day, tried to be still, which I did not achieve at all, that didn't. But the fact that I was just sitting, trying to calm things down, got me on the path.
Hmm.
Yeah, I did find a teacher though. There in Paris, I found a great teacher. There was a Zen dojo that I became a member of, and he founded Integral Yoga. So I was not only doing yoga practices, but meditation in the morning and evening at this dojo, and learning another kind of Irano-Egyptian yoga, if you can believe that, which worked
Interesting.
on all of the different chakras. So
Okay.
it was quite an eclectic mix.
Oh,
As my I did that for about 8 years.
very nice. Well, first of all, I'm very impressed that your first thought of trying to get over stress in Paris was going to meditation instead of going to a great, cafe and trying some of the pastries or anything else that's
Well, I
available
did that too.
in Paris. Okay. So you did that. That worked for a little bit, and then you really needed to go deeper. I get it.
Yeah.
So that sounds very interesting in terms of that. I'm probably I remember the Iranian part. What was the other combination?
Oh, it was yoga. It was hatha
Okay.
yoga and
Hmm.
also Zen meditation. So we would go, I became a member of this dojo,
Okay.
and we would go there morning and evening. So I jumped into something rather intense without really knowing what I was getting into, but I started getting results, or
Perfect.
what I thought were
Mhm.
pretty good results for going out on stage and just having less reaction to a lot of things.
And was the reaction before you would go on stage, or was the reaction upon seeing the audience, or during the performance you started getting nervous? Where was your reaction coming in?
Oh, I'm talking about reaction on a daily basis with
Okay,
all
got it.
kinds of things, with people, with,
Got it.
what am I going to do about this? What's my future going to be? Oh my
Okay.
gosh, what have I done? Just all that regular
Yeah.
kind of
Hmm.
reactive self that we all have.
Yes.
It was extra stressful to walk out. It was always before a performance. Once I got out there and started going, I could
Yeah.
pretty much, you know, keep myself together and enjoy the performance, but it was always before.
It's actually it's interesting that you mentioned that because meditation and from my own practice and from I certainly am no pianist. I love piano. It's one of my favorite instruments. But
Aha.
what I found in terms of going out on stage, you are nervous before you go out on stage, and then once you get into it and once you start whatever it is that you're doing, you really become a part of that moment and you forget who's there. It doesn't really matter. You're focused so much on what you're doing. You're living in that, which at its essence, for me anyway, one part of the meditation is being in the moment, being present, whatever it
Absolutely.
is that you're doing. So it's interesting that you went to meditation not necessarily to help you from the performance perspective, it's from the life in general, which is
Yes.
where most of us are suffering because we have so many things. We're bombarded by so much information on a daily basis. It's hard to actually sort that through, and by being still and then utilizing some of the techniques that we'll talk about in a few minutes, that's where you can start breathing and getting to a state where you're more and more calm and comfortable.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This was the thing that I realized is that before I would go on stage,
Hmm.
I was identified with something about, who I was as a pianist, or what people might think, or what was my future. It was not in the moment, and it pointed out something to me about what we do in identification with things and how that affects us, puts us in the future or the past,
Yeah.
and takes us out of the present moment. So the work is to actually practice being in the present moment. You don't have to be sitting on a
Right.
cushion, and meditating for hours to do that. Absolutely not.
And that's perfect segue into something that I want to talk about, because most people are busy,
Yes.
especially people who we're dealing with for this course. They're busy. They have jobs. They have families. They have responsibilities. The idea of sitting in a certain pose and not thinking about anything for 30, 40 minutes at a time is daunting.
Well,
Um,
also
yeah.
impossible for many, for
For
after, it
yeah.
takes years and years and years for
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So, um,
What what have you found for the
yeah,
busy people? What have you
right.
found that works? Because I remember you mentioning that you tried to be still, which was very difficult for you, and then you started really seeing results after being a part of that, morning and evening ritual. So,
Right.
what works for your clients who are very, very busy and somebody who just
Okay.
starting out?
Right. Well, one of the things that I learned with my second teacher, with whom I was with for 14 years,
Okay.
it was all about self-observation. And so the whole thing, this is a very difficult thing. And you think,
Hmm.
oh, I can observe myself, but it really is like looking at your own eyeballs in a
Hmm.
certain way. And so he began to give me methods, which I also give my students. I pass that information on because it was just the secret weapon. It was the gold. It was the
Hmm.
real nugget of mindfulness teaching. And it was to find different ways of realizing that you're not present, that you're
Hmm.
not here. And that may
Yeah.
seem quite obvious, but for example, the first thing I give my students is find an external cue. When
Hmm.
you're out and about, is there an external cue that you could, for example, mine was yellow cars, because I was driving kids around at this point when I was studying
Yeah.
with this teacher. And it was every time I saw a yellow car, I, I would remember, I'm here. I'm here right now. And I realized, oh, I was all lost in thought, or I was completely looped into, now what am I going to do, into this planning thing. And I would see the yellow car and make that association and say, oh, stop here, 1 minute, here
Right.
I am. And if I saw a school bus, that was 100 points. It was fantastic. It was like, oh, yeah, I am really here. So an external cue uh, allowed me to see the contrast of how much I wasn't here,
Right.
and became a reminder for me. So, for example, that was one thing that was very, very helpful. The other secret weapon, really, and I do a lot of teaching before I give actually this aspect, but
Hmm.
I think it would be helpful for your listeners,
Thank you.
is to use sensation, because all of us are locked in this intellectual emotional complex, and we have feedback loops and we get all stuck in this. And
Yep.
one of the ways for us to counteract that is to be in our bodies. And it's very difficult to tell somebody, oh, just get in your body. It's easy to say it, but it's
Yep.
hard for them to get in their bodies. And we do exercise, we try to sit and do meditation, we do yoga, we do walking, but we do that to get in our bodies. But what I'm talking about is using a tool called sensation, meaning you have a physical sense of a body part, for example. Like you and I could be talking right now,
Hmm.
and we can now get a sense of our hands. So we're doing that at the same time as we're communicating to each other and seeing each other and talking about ideas. But I also have this very rounded, subtle awareness of the physicality of my hands. And that will be the gateway into having expanded awareness.
Hmm.
So that's maybe a little bit different than, focused. Yes, we want to be focused. We want to be able to not have the, oh, there's a bird, and oh, I love that song, and oh, it doesn't he have a nice shirt on, and things like that. Okay, that's our attention just flitting from one thing to another.
Mm-hmm.
And we get taught we should focus and have one pointed awareness, and that is very helpful too. For walking,
Mm-hmm.
we observe our walking. And if we notice and we start thinking about, oh, but what's my boss going to think of, we go back to the walking.
Yep.
But this is the third kind of attention that I'm talking about, that the sensation is bringing in sensation while you're doing something else.
Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. And that is one of the things that I wish to get across to everybody, is that meditation is not just sitting in a position. Meditation is not listening to certain music or putting your tongue next to the top of your mouth and saying certain things. It's not about what mudra you're using. It's
Yes.
really about living.
Yes.
Meditation is life. And if you make your life into a meditation, then everything happens, because it's all about awareness.
That
It's
is so true.
and that's what I found interesting, because for me it was very difficult to be in that one pose for an extended period of time, because my mind was always racing. I'm the analytical person. I'm the visualization person. Visualizations for me worked well, because I would put myself in a certain world and I would just imagine and see things and focus on that. And that type of meditation works
Right.
very, very well for me, and it was great for calming. It was great for cleansing. It was great for many things. But to just sit there and say
Right.
that's not me.
Right.
And I think that led me into noticing what happens with my body and what happens in my mind, and when do I receive actual information from my guidance system, as I call it. And that was when I was in the shower,
Mm-hmm.
or I would be brushing my teeth, or
Mm-hmm.
I would be, not that I do this often, but I would be cooking. And I all of a sudden get this download of information. I'm thinking, what happened? I was not really meditating. I was not sitting. I was not focusing on it. And it was because I was allowing it. My
Yes.
conscious mind was busy doing something else, which opened the doorway for all the information to actually come in. And that is the meditation. So you can do that at any time. You can do that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's,
Absolutely. I find that
yeah.
if I have a synthesis of
Mm-hmm.
my centers, meaning I have my body there, I can observe my emotions, and I can see my thinking.
Mm-hmm.
That's when something extra can come in, like you're talking about that download.
Yeah.
It's often during a mundane kind of repetitive motion movement, like chopping vegetables, folding laundry, something simple where you're not having to really calculate things or use your thinking for what it's very, very good at.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a more relaxed activity that you can have this mindfulness. That's why they call me the mindfulness mentor, because though I do think it is good to sit and try to be still, but you can just watch your mind and watch what it does. You don't have to. People get frustrated with this goal of I have to make it still,
Mm-hmm.
and that they'll get so frustrated with that. Even in 5 minutes, if you sit down, actually just watch what this thing does. It is just absolute. It's a fountain of woo woo
Mm-hmm.
woo, and you could say I'm going to sit down for 5 minutes and just watch what it does,
Mm-hmm.
so I can get an idea of what it's doing all day long instead of me actually being here.
Yeah.
So that's something that we can all do. Sometimes I will find something that will, like I'll put an alarm on the phone,
Mm-hmm.
or I'll stop at a stoplight, and I'll say, now from this trip from here to there, when I stop at the stoplight, I'm going to try and stop. I'm not going to text or listen to the radio or think about something else. I'm just going to try and be here,
Mm-hmm.
just for that little stoplight. Well, that can seem like an eternity sometimes,
Yeah.
you
And,
know?
and I think people in general are unfortunately uncomfortable with silence.
Yes.
Because we are so trained, we're so used to information being coming at us from everywhere, be it television, be it our friends, be it music glaring in the background as we're driving. what are people listening to? And that's usually the radio, or maybe it's books on tape, or maybe it's something else. But just turn off the radio.
Right, it's something to keep us distracted.
Yeah.
And what are we trying to distract ourselves from? This is the big question, and this is the
Yep.
big elephant in the room, and
Yep.
none of us really want to take a look at that. I mean, we do retreats. I run retreats where we try to simulate everyday life, but in sort of special conditions. So we're doing gardening and practical work. We're building, perhaps we're working on a building, and then we also do movement. We do sacred dance so that we can synthesize things. We have things that we do while we're moving, while we're doing, so that we can learn how to be here now, while we're doing everyday life. And that you said it. It really is the way in.
Yeah.
And to know thyself is everything. And we have to find ways of actually knowing ourselves instead of pretending like, all these visualizations and affirmations will bring us the thing, but we don't realize that there's a whole other part of us that's self-sabotaging all of that.
Yep.
So really, I just get down to the bare minimum of what's happening within me now, because the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. Do you know this? That if you observe something, it affects what is observed.
Yep.
So you don't really need to change something. You simply need to see it. And we're distracting ourselves from seeing,
Yep.
everything going on. So I think you and I see eye to eye about this method, and we really can make life a meditation. And it's fantastic. It really, once you start getting this practice, that attention gets strengthened.
Yeah.
So then you have more resources. Then you start to, you see you're going into a charged situation, and you can say, do I feel my hands? Am I in my body? Am I here right now? And kind of gear up, knowing that this kind of situation might ignite reaction or anger, or you something with another person. Well, then as you strengthen this, you have more equipment to not react and to actually have some choice in life, instead of being, a victim of fate all the time. So.
Yeah, and that goes into the essence of what meditation is actually used for.
Yes.
We can talk about meditation as wonderful, and it is a great stress release, and blah, 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 blah. But what are we actually using it for? And you can use it for anything, but what it's trying to do is to get you to calm down, is to get your body to be in a mode where it's not fighting anything at the moment. It's where you are actually with yourself, where you are calm and peaceful, and in that mode, everything else you can tackle and do it much better.
I agree. It's acceptance of what is. That is terribly difficult for all of us, and I know I've struggled with it, for probably lifetimes. But I tell you, in this one, I really learned some unique methods that have helped me to, and I help others to find the place where you have enough energy of a certain type where you can just, you are able to accept what is and not fight. We cannot change the way other people are, or the way things happen, or if they don't go our way. And we really get affected by, we think things should be this way, or I like it this way. And this all helps us to let go of those and see these likes and dislikes, and to see where are these shoulds coming from.
Yep.
So then we can release this hold on the way we think things should be. And then it is much easier to say, oh, well, whatever, this is what's happening. And we don't change that. It's now we do it, now we do this.
Yeah.
And that makes life a lot easier.
It does. And that's certainly one of the huge benefits of meditation. Thank you very much. I really appreciate your time. Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. And again, we're speaking with Molly Knight Forde. Everybody will have information about Molly and how you can get in contact with her. Please do so. Thank you, Molly.
Thank you so much.